homeschool colleagues. Welcome back to Lesson 8 of Module 1. This is the last lesson in the module, and it is all about the history of homeschooling in America. As a homeschool mom, I've been fascinated by the history of America for many years. I read aloud books to my children every year, and there were several biographies that we read about the families of the founding era of the United States. Since I grew up in public schools, I was surprised and delighted to learn that education in America started in the home. The first biography I read to my children was about Abigail Adams. Abigail Adams was the wife of John Adams, the second president of the United States, and one of the founding fathers. When Abigail was born in 1744, they thought she would not live very long because she was so thin and frail, but she lived a very full life. Her father taught her at home using the New England Primer from the time when she was 4 years old. She loved reading, had a good memory, and learned fast. In 1764, she got married to John Adams, who was a lawyer by trade. They lived outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and he traveled extensively for 11 years to France, Netherlands, and the United Kingdom from 1777 to 1788. Abigail was left at the farm to raise 6 children, but she was quite capable. She is famous for the personal letters she wrote and received from her husband. They had great communication despite the distance. She taught her children at home, managed the family investments, and was her husband's closest advisor in politics and government. Their second child, John Quincy Adams, eventually became the 6th president of the United States. John Quincy and his father also exchanged many letters during the time of his father's travels. It was amazing to observe how committed his father was to the education of his son. Despite his busy schedule and far distance, his father found the time to teach him many things from classic literature like Virgil, Plutarch, and Aristotle. At the age of 11, he went with his father to France and the Netherlands, where he studied law, French, Greek, and Latin. Can you imagine studying that at 11 years old? When he was 14, he served as the secretary of the American diplomat in Russia for 2 years. At the age of 18, in 1785, he returned to the United States to attend Harvard, and after graduating, he eventually became a lawyer. If that's a taste of what homeschooling can do, sign me up. Now let me share a story about Benjamin West. Benjamin West was born in 1738 in Springfield, Pennsylvania, around the same time as Abigail Adams. He had 10 older brothers and sisters, and his father was an innkeeper. They were used to having guests often because they lived at the inn. John West, his father, was very strict with the children. As you may guess, being the owner of an inn, there was much work to do, and all the children had their duties. There was no time for too much leisure. Work was their education, but Benjamin West had other interests. He wanted to paint, but his father believed pictures were not necessary in life. So Benjamin West could only hope of becoming a painter, but through various circumstances, he learned to paint without the help of a teacher. Growing up in a home like his teaches you the skill of being self-taught. He had an interest and a propensity to find ways to paint pictures. Even the Indians close by showed him different ways to make colors, and his mother secretly praised him for his efforts. At the age of 9, he met an artist, William Williams, who mentored him. Over time, his father could see the gift and talent his son had. By the time Benjamin was 15 years old, he met William Henry, who loved his portraits and saw his potential. Mr. Henry hired him to paint historical paintings, and that is what Benjamin West is most famous for. Now he is known as the father of American painting. What a wonderful opportunity Benjamin had. The childhood he had gave him the chance to explore his interests and pursue his passions. These are 2 specific examples of home life during the time of the beginning of the United States, but it hasn't always been like that. By the early 1800s, only about 50 years after the nation established its constitution, common women's schools were established. By 1870, every state passed laws that made public schools free for everyone. And by 1930, all children were attending publicly funded schools, and compulsory laws were passed in all 50 states. It was illegal for parents to educate their children at home during that time, and the government could fine parents or send them to jail. Consequently, homeschooling was a memory of the past, and literacy rates suffered. The National Center for Education Statistics defines literacy as the ability to understand, evaluate, use, and engage with written texts, to participate in society, to achieve one's goals, and to develop one's knowledge and potential. A book entitled A Nation at Risk, written in 1983, found that SAT scores dropped 40% from 1963 to 1980. Nearly 40% of 17-year-olds tested could not successfully draw inferences from written material, and only 1/5 could write a persuasive essay. Only 1/3 of students could solve a math problem requiring several steps. New educational philosophies were implemented, and schools began to get larger and larger as the nation grew. That's where most of us probably found ourselves, in a public school. However, in 1977, a man named John Holt began a newsletter called Growing Without Schooling, about teaching children at home, and inspired the nation's first homeschoolers. Homeschooling began to emerge again in the 1980s. In 1981, the first homeschool book was written by Raymond Moore, entitled Homegrown Kids. In 1983, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, an organization that advocates for the freedom to homeschool all over the world, was founded by Michael Ferris, a homeschool parent and attorney. During this time, parents all over America who wanted to homeschool lobbied in state legislatures to get laws passed for the rights of parents to homeschool. By the early 1990s, which is only 30 years ago, all states legalized homeschooling. Even as I came across numerous other articles about the history of homeschooling, researchers have put us into waves. At first, it was those who wanted to homeschool for religious purposes. I call them homeschool pioneers. Their motto would have been, "I can homeschool." Then came others who wanted to homeschool for practical or academic reasons. I call them homeschool practitioners. Their motto would have been, "We are homeschooling." Now there's us. Some of us are second-generation homeschoolers. Some of us are here because it's just another viable option to educate our children. I call this generation the homeschool pilots. And our motto, speaking arrogantly, is, "We need to homeschool." We are launching homeschool education in a whole new direction. We're sailing far and flying high to destinations unheard of. What a great time to be homeschooling. Once again, we as parents in the United States have the freedom to educate our children the way we see fit. I am thankful for all the people who fought before us and are still fighting for our rights as homeschoolers. Because of them, our children will be able to make a positive impact on the nations like Abigail Adams and Benjamin West. That's it for a history of homeschooling in America. Thanks for watching.